Hey Daniel,
Vanan?
this is unprecedented today.
Yes. This is our first emergency podcast of this new version of local politics.
Yes.
And I think what we wanted to do was quickly come on and react to this quite incredible and unprecedented decision by High Court Judge Mr. Vincent Hung on the sentencing of former Minister S. Iswaran.
Yeah. So Singapore, if you're just tuning in, Iswaran, Minister S. Iswaran has got a sentence of 1 year for the 5 charges that he's pled guilty. This is unprecedented and also important because it's not what the prosecution asked for. It's definitely not what the defense was going for.
Right.
And the judge has looked at the evidence and has decided to give him 1 year of a prison sentence.
Yeah. So just to recap, I think what the prosecution was asking was 6 to 7 months. That was what was tabled last week in court, and his defense, as his warrant's defense, was looking at a sentence of just 8 weeks. And before we came on, I quickly went online to actually look at what is the culpability, what is the sentencing guidelines for 165, Penal Code 165, which most of the charges that Iswaran pleaded guilty to were under, and it's actually about 2 years. So under the Penal Code and the guidelines that they've set, 1 year, even though sounds quite drastic compared to what was asked for by both the defense and the prosecution, it's still about 50% or just half of what the maximum guideline is for Section 165.
Yeah, we both have very different reactions to this sentencing.
And just to be clear, we're not lawyers, so we're going to try our best to talk about it in a layman's perspective from what we've read. So please, if you get anything wrong, just let us know, and we'll make it up later on.
Yeah. So when you heard it, what did you think? Were you disappointed being a party guy?
Look, I'm not disappointed. I don't feel anything really. I think what it was is just shock or surprise. I think that's the more correct word here, that it was much more than what the prosecution had sought, and definitely much more than what the defense had sought. I'm going to be honest, like throughout this trial, like not trial, but throughout the whole process of the last week, the twists and the turns have been coming quite fast. And look, I'm going to be quite clear. I view this case as purely a spectator, right? I don't think it bears any issue to the party today or the government today. But I feel that, I was surprised that it was much more. But then when you read the excerpts of the judgment that were published in the Straits Times and other media today, it becomes quite clear why this harsher sentence was set from the judge's perspective. So, the judge basically opens by saying that the amount that was sought, the punishment that was sought by the prosecution and that was asked for by the defense was manifestly inadequate. And the whole point of setting the standard is that because as Section 165, this is the first time it's being used in Singapore, that he wanted to set general deterrence to other people and setting basically a legal precedent that, okay, for someone who had served in such a high office and for other people in civil service who maybe have a similar rank or even below, you can expect that this is the benchmark for failure to act under Section 165.
Yeah, for me it was quite telling. I mean, firstly, if I was Iswaran, for you to go through all of this, get arrested, over almost a year, and then get a sentence that significantly more than what either the defense or the prosecution asked for, would definitely be seen as a disappointment. I see the videos now and think a lot of Singaporeans will be watching this, him walking out very stoic, not saying anything. It's quite, very different to the demeanor of the man who, when he was first charged, said he's definitely innocent of these charges.
Yeah.
I think to put the things in context before, things get a little bit maybe dismayed or changed, he's not charged under the Corruption Act. So what he was initially meaning to was his innocence from that charge.
Yeah.
He's got 4 charges under Penal Code Section 165, which you rightfully said is a new precedent, and 1 on obstructing the account of justice. So saying that it is unusual, I suppose, but not against what we have seen before. So the judge said the 2 main things that he considered was, what is the appropriate sentencing approach? And this is where the culpability, I think, that he talks a lot about.
Yeah.
And the second is, the appropriate reduction in the sentence. So I think the defense argued, or at least tried to argue, that because of the disgorgement, him paying back the funds,
Right.
and the fact that actually there's no quid pro quo,
Yeah.
and that he had actually pled guilty quite quickly,
Mm.
that the sentence should be not more than 8 weeks.
Mm.
And actually, I was very heartened that the judge didn't see it in this way.
This is your opinion now.
This is purely just my opinion. I think the judge basically examines and gives a lot of clarifications on why he has undertaken this decision.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's interested, I mean, it's really quick that you can go and check this. He talks about the fact that because he holds high public office, that he's a seasoned minister,
Mm.
his actions set somewhat of a precedent. The defense argued that because no one has ever used Section 165 to try, that this should not be set as some kind of a standard for a public servant.
Mhm.
But the judge argued against that. He said that he should have known in his course as an experienced minister that these gifts would amount to something that is not actually maybe
Yeah.
very correct. He also felt that the people who gave the gifts, the two businessmen in question, only gave the gifts in accordance to not their friendship, but
Mm.
because he held this position. But also the sentencing, right? The appropriate sentencing means that this now sets the benchmark for any other civil servant or any other minister who might venture down this field.
I mean, one of the things you touched on is this idea of culpability, right? That he is a former very senior minister. He's a cabinet position holder. I mean, he's been in the cabinet for over a decade. And, you know, to you, when we were talking about this, when the news came out, you felt that actually you thought this was a good move to keep it at a higher level than what the prosecution wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can kind of explain why you felt that way. And then, of course, you're your own civil servant too. So
Yeah, as an ex-civil servant, I think for me it was very important because this think about declaring, this think about the kind of gifts that you're getting, it's a very staple part of your civil service career.
Mm.
Besides the work that you do, you're very much, checking through everything that you're receiving on a daily basis.
yeah,
People who don't go through that course of life and that course of work maybe don't hold the same burden in your work.
Mm.
So it's not independent of the work. I would say it's almost as part of those responsibilities.
right.
So when you are supposed to be holding this level of proficiency and efficiency, I think the bar should be set higher in standard. I think if you also look into the fact of the kind of minister that he was and the different portfolios that he had taken, he wasn't a low minister. He was a very experienced minister. And the offenses that were the charges that are maybe put against him, particularly as a Minister of Transport and in MTI, as a chairman of the F1 Steering Committee, it's hard to then say that it's not, he should have known his responsibilities better.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's what the culpability here is, right?
Okay.
I think the judge said it that the total duration of his offending, it wasn't just one or two gifts. I mean, they took into account 30 different charges.
Yeah.
And if you look at the list of the many different things, he had many opportunities to not take all of this. He should have known better. And I think this sentence, he should have known better, is really the crux of why he's been given this 1 year sentence.
So I mean, to your second point, then this idea that he had also disgorged, his I guess the gifts that he took paid back to the government. He had also pled guilty very quickly. He had also, I mean, there were other mitigating factors that he was a minister. He served Singapore for 15 years. He's actually quite a popular minister during his time, and I think objectively many people would say that he did a lot of good for the country.
Yeah.
And actually, in the judgment, that was not weighed in at all, right? Because this idea of someone using his position to take valuable gifts is so serious in our country's context that all that work that done before can be so easily tainted. I mean, I know you have views on this part as well.
I mean, I totally agree with the judge, actually. He said that insurance public service and contributions are a neutral factor.
Mm.
So he didn't say it's not necessary. He used the word very carefully, a neutral factor.
Right.
So that means, in a way, he's interpreting that his job as a minister is to do the best for Singapore.
Yeah.
And because of his professional excellence, which is why he has been given the job, you can't really take that as a mitigating factor anymore.
I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
And
sure.
when you look at the breakdown of the judge's analysis of why he has looked at every charge in the way, he makes a lot of reasons for why he came up with this particular deliberation. He also very famously said that the higher the office, the higher the level of culpability.
Sure.
Now, this is also a precedent, right? Because right after that, he talks about the fact that Iswaran goes on this trip to Doha. He cites again, and I think he said it at least twice in his deliberation, that he took emergency leave to go there. The defense said that, it's not really quid pro quo, because OBS, the businessman who was in the middle of this, would have incurred the charges anyway because it was his private jet, and that the expenses would have been the same. But the judge went down even harder. He said there's material comfort in flying in a private jet. I mean, we've never flown in a private jet, but you can imagine it's a comfortable experience. And as a seasoned minister, he should have known. And I think that's the crux of this matter, right? Once you know this, and in particular in Singapore, for me as a Singaporean and as an ex-civil servant, I think when other civil servants and other public office holders look at this, it will have the effect that the judge has set out to be, which is the deterrence is going to be high. Someone who takes this level of gifts in the future will know that the law will come down hard. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is this court of public opinion, right? This judge, Justin Vincent Hong, who I'm now a big fan of, he is not a junior judge, he's a veteran. He was appointed to the High Court in 2020, but he's got a 40-year career since he joined the bar. So in a way, maybe we should have known that the sentence that was going to be dealt to Iswaran would have been quite harsh. In fact, when Iswaran's defense had asked for the prosecutions to hand over all the witness statements, the judge denied his request. So it was going to be a difficult ordeal and affair for him to get what he wanted based on just his defense ask, I think.
Okay. So look, I mean, this is an emergency pod. I think we're just reacting kind of quite quickly to what came out. Today it's October 3rd, and we know that the judge has asked former Minister S. Iswaran to surrender himself to the state courts on Monday, the 7th, next week. So what can we kind of look to seeing? I mean, it could be a very busy weekend for him if he tries to appeal it, or it could be something where he just says, okay, I'm going to go in and serve my year. What do you think is on the cards? I mean,
I think this is the million-dollar question, right? I mean, I say million-dollar question. Iswaran has posted a bail of $800,000. He's got the weekend. He said he will turn himself in on Monday, I believe. But his defense lawyer also said that upon his instructions, we will know the next cause, which means there could be a chance of an appeal. It's important to know that even doing the appeal is a very interesting precedent now for Singapore to see how he will combat this. If he has claimed his innocence in the beginning and throughout this, until it was downgraded to Section 165. If he truly feels that he's innocent of these crimes, I would maybe want to see him appeal and see if he can get a reduced sentence. But at the same time, if he appeals, there is a chance, like you rightfully pointed out, that it can become 2 years.
So I mean, just to clarify on that point, it's in Singapore, if you appeal your sentence and you go up to the Court of Appeals, actually what you're appealing is not just that you can reduce the sentence. Based on the evidence presented to the Court of Appeals, they can actually add on to your sentence, right? So you could end up with a higher sentence if you appeal. So
yeah, I mean, let's wait and see. But I think this is a clear indication that, in Singapore, any kind of gifts that a public servant takes, even if it's not quid pro quo corruption, will be clamped down hard. I think that sets a good precedent. Anyone who has come to Singapore or has read a bit about Singapore knows that we take a zero tolerance approach to any of these matters. Some might even say it sets us apart in Southeast Asia. So I think all in all, it's the right one. And having spoken to a couple of people after hearing the sentence, ex-public servants, current public servants, they feel like it's also the right thing to do to set this precedent. But hey, let's see if he appeals.
Okay, guys. So thanks for tuning into this emergency podcast. Actually, the funny thing is we just recorded a longer episode about Iswaran a few days ago, and that will actually come out after this now, so it might be a bit outdated. But thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
This is Majula Presents Local Politics. Please follow us if you want to get more breaking news on Singapore's politics and policies. See you.